the uninvited guest. The night was quiet, the kind of silence that made every small sound echo louder. John pushed open the door of his small house, his shoulders heavy from a long day at work. He dropped his bag near the sofa and sighed, already dreaming of sleep. But then, he heard something strange. Water. It was the sound of running water. At first, John thought he had forgotten to close the tap in the kitchen. But as he listened carefully, the sound was coming from the bathroom. His bathroom. John froze. He lived alone, and no one should be in his house. A chill ran through his spine. Slowly, he reached for the small metal rod he kept near the door. For protection, his heart pounded as he walked down the hall, the sound of water getting louder with every step. He stopped at the bathroom door. There was steam drifting out through the gap. The light was on inside. John tightened his grip on the rod. He took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. What he saw made him forget how to breathe. Sitting in the bathtub was a girl, but not like any girl he had ever seen before. Her skin was bright blue, smooth and glowing faintly under the dim light. Her ears were sharp, longer than human ears. Her wet hair clung to her face and shoulders, dark strands shining with water. She wore a black piece of clothing that looked torn and too tight, as if she had been through something terrible. Her eyes widened the moment she saw him, shining like two glowing gems. John almost dropped the rod. The girl gasped and quickly pulled her knees to her chest. "Please, don't hurt me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I just needed to wash. I'm so dirty. Please let me wash." John blinked, unable to believe what he was seeing. Was this real? Or was he too tired and imagining things? An alien girl, sitting in his bathtub, begging to stay. The steam filled the air, making the moment feel unreal, like a dream that didn't make sense. The girl's hands shook as she held a wet towel close to her body. Drops of water slid down her blue skin, and John noticed strange marks on her arms, almost like scars or symbols. Glowing faintly, her breathing was fast, like she had been running. Her eyes never left his face, filled with fear, but also something else, desperation. "Who are you?" John asked softly, lowering the rod. "Why are you in my house?" "I had no choice," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They were chasing me. I couldn't stay outside. I had to hide. Please, I just wanted to clean myself. I won't stay long." John's chest tightened. He could tell she wasn't lying. There was real fear in her voice, in the way her shoulders shook. But still, this was insane. A stranger? No, an alien had broken into his home. And yet, instead of anger, he felt something else, curiosity, and a strange pull he couldn't explain. The bathroom was small, and the steam fogged the mirror behind him. He could see both their reflections, a tired human man and a terrified alien girl. Two beings who should never have met, yet here they were. The air felt heavy with tension. John took a slow step closer, careful not to scare her. Her eyes followed his every move, her hands clutching the towel tighter. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice steady. "But you can't just break into someone's house. Do you understand that?" "I know," she whispered, tears welling in her glowing eyes. "I know it was wrong, but I was so dirty, and I couldn't bear it anymore. Please, just let me wash, then I will leave." Her words hit him harder than he expected. The way she begged, the way her voice shook. It wasn't just about being dirty, it was about something deeper, something painful. He didn't know what she had been through, but it was clear she was running from more than just dirt. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the dripping water from the faucet and her trembling breaths. Finally, John sighed and leaned against the wall, lowering the rod completely. "All right," he said quietly. "Finish what you started. I'll give you a moment, but after that, you need to explain." The girl blinked, shocked by his answer. Her lips parted as if she wanted to thank him, but no words came. Instead, she nodded quickly, clutching the towel to her chest. Her eyes softened, though fear still lingered within them. John turned to leave, But as he stepped out, he couldn't shake the image of her eyes from his mind. They were eyes that held both fear and secrets. Eyes that promised his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. And though he didn't know it yet, by letting her stay, even for a moment. John had just opened the door to a story far bigger than himself. A story of danger, trust, and something that would test the limits of both human and alien hearts. The plea. John sat on the edge of his sofa, his mind racing. He could still hear the faint sound of water running in the bathroom. Steam curled out from under the door like a secret he was not supposed to see. His heart refused to slow down. No matter how hard he tried, he had let her stay, at least for a while. Why? He didn't know. Maybe it was her eyes. Maybe the fear in her trembling voice. Whatever the reason, John knew his life had already stepped outside of normal. And there was no going back. Minutes passed, then the sound of water stopped. A heavy silence filled the small house. John stood slowly, his hand brushing against the cold wall as he walked back to the bathroom. The door creaked when he pushed it open. She was still there, sitting in the tub. Her skin glistened with water, glowing faintly like moonlight on the ocean. Her wet hair framed her face, dripping softly into the water. The towel in her hand was squeezed so tightly that her knuckles turned pale blue. When she looked at him, her eyes were no longer just afraid. They carried something heavier: sorrow, desperation, and exhaustion. She looked like someone who had carried too much pain for too long. "Please," she whispered again, her voice barely rising above the quiet. "I just needed to wash. I had no choice." John leaned against the doorway, watching her carefully. "You can't just sneak into people's homes," he said slowly, his tone calm but firm. "People will think you're dangerous. People might try to hurt you." "I know," she said quickly, her voice breaking, her eyes filled with tears, and she hugged her knees close. "But I had nowhere else to go, nowhere safe." Something inside John shifted. It was one thing to see an alien in his bathtub, but another to hear her sound so human. The way she begged, the way she shivered, it was not a trick. It was the cry of someone who had been running for too long. "What are you running from?" he asked softly. Her eyes darted to the floor, her lips trembling. She stayed quiet for a long moment, as if deciding whether she could trust him. Finally, she whispered, "Hunters." The word cut through the air like a knife. John frowned. "What kind of hunters?" "Not human hunters," she said, her voice shaking. "They are from my world. They are chasing me because I escaped, because I broke their rule. If they find me here, they will kill me, and anyone who helps me." John's breath caught in his chest. He stared at her, at the glowing marks on her arms, the scars that told stories he could not yet understand. And suddenly, everything made sense. The fear, the desperation, the reason she had risked sneaking into his home just to shower. Her voice grew weaker as she continued. "I was hiding in the dirt, the mud, just to throw them off my trail. I had no food, no water. I was covered in filth. I felt like I wasn't even alive anymore. I just wanted one small moment to feel clean, to feel like myself, even if only for a little while." John swallowed hard. The plea in her words hit him deeper than he expected. She wasn't just begging for a shower. She was begging for dignity, for a small piece of her freedom back, and he, a simple human, was the only one who could give it to her. "You risked everything just for that," John said, his voice low. Her eyes lifted to meet his, shining with tears. "Yes," she whispered, "because I didn't want to forget who I am. I didn't want to become only what they made me." John took a slow step into the bathroom, his rod forgotten, his fear melting into something else, a strange mix of sympathy, curiosity, and anger. Anger at whoever had done this to her. "You can't stay here forever," he said, his tone softer now. "But for tonight, you're safe. I won't throw you out, not like this." Her lips trembled as if she wanted to smile, but the weight of her sorrow held it back. She nodded quickly, whispering, "Thank you, human. Thank you so much." Her voice cracked. but it was filled with genuine relief. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. The bathroom was filled with quiet steam and the faint drip of water. Two strangers, one human, one alien, bound together by a single act of mercy. But John knew this was not the end. The hunters she spoke of were real, and they could be close. Letting her stay meant putting himself in danger, but letting her go would mean abandoning her to a fate worse than death. He turned and walked toward the living room, his mind heavy. She stayed in the tub, her body sinking lower into the warm water, as if it was the first comfort she had felt in years. The air around them carried a tension that neither could deny. The night had only just begun, and already John felt his life was no longer his own. Little did he know, the plea of the alien girl in his bathtub would soon pull him into a fight he never wanted, a fight where trust, courage, and something even stronger would be tested. And, for the first time, the quiet walls of his house felt smaller, as if the universe itself was pressing against them, waiting for what came next. Secrets in the steamed bathroom mirror was still fogged when John returned later that night. The steam lingered in the air, as if it wanted to hide the truth from him, but there she was, sitting in the same bathtub, her arms resting on the edge, her wet hair clinging to her shoulders. She looked calmer now, but her eyes carried shadows that no amount of water could wash away. John leaned against the doorframe, unsure what to say. He had questions, more than he could count, but looking at her, he felt the weight of her pain, the kind that made words hard to form. Finally, he broke the silence. "You said they were hunters, chasing you. Why?" The alien girl lifted her head slowly, her glowing eyes meeting his. For a moment, she said nothing, as if debating whether he could be trusted. Then, with a shaky breath, she whispered, "Because I was born different. Because I carry something inside me they want to control." John frowned, his fingers tapping against the doorframe. "Something inside you," she nodded, her hand brushing over the faint, glowing marks on her arm. "These scars are not normal wounds. They are symbols, marks burned into my body when I was still young. They show that I have energy inside me, energy that can be used as a weapon. They want to use me as their tool, their soldier, but I escaped. And now they hunt me." John's stomach tightened. He stared at the glowing marks, realizing they were not just scars, but something alive. The light pulsed faintly, as if her body carried electricity beneath the skin. "And if they catch you?" he asked quietly. Her eyes dropped to the water, her voice breaking. "They will break me. They will turn me into what I fear most, a weapon without a soul." The room felt heavier with each word. John tried to understand, but this was far beyond anything he had imagined. An alien girl, marked by her people, hunted for the power she never asked for, and she was now in his house, in his care. "Why here? Why Earth?" he asked softly. She looked up, her expression tired. "Because humans don't know me, don't know what I am. Here I can hide, even if only for a little while. I hoped they would not search this far, but they are relentless. I can feel their presence. They are coming closer." John's jaw tightened. He knew she was telling the truth. He had seen the terror in her eyes, the way her hands shook when she spoke of them. But what was he supposed to do? He was just a man with a small house, no weapons, no power, and yet, somehow, she had chosen his home as her last place of safety. He moved closer to her, careful not to startle her. The steam swirled between them, blurring the distance. "Let me see your arm," he said gently. Her eyes widened, but after a pause, she slowly lifted her arm from the water. The glowing marks shimmered softly against her blue skin. John reached out, his fingers hovering just above the scarred symbols. The air between them tingled, as if the marks carried a hidden energy. "What does it feel like?" he asked, his voice calm. She swallowed hard, her lips trembling. "It feels like fire in chains at the same time, a power I never wanted, locked inside me. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it feels like it will consume me. I wash because the water calms it. It keeps me from burning inside." John pulled his hand back, his chest heavy. Every word she spoke revealed more than he was ready for. But there was no going back. He was part of this now. Her secret was his secret, and he could no longer pretend it was just a dream. For a moment, silence returned, broken only by the drip of water. Then she whispered something he did not expect. "Why did you not throw me out? Any other human would have. Why you?" John looked at her glowing skin, at the fragility. She tried to hide. He thought of an answer. But the truth slipped out without effort. "Because you looked like you needed someone, and I couldn't be the kind of man who turned away." Her lips parted, her eyes widening with surprise. No one had ever said that to her before. He could see it in her face. For the first time, she didn't look only afraid. She looked touched, almost hopeful. Her shoulders lowered, her grip on the towel loosened. "Then maybe," she whispered, her voice soft as steam, "maybe I chose the right house." The words hung between them, heavier than any silence. John's heart beat faster, not out of fear this time, but out of something new. A bond was forming, fragile, but real, and in that moment, he knew this was no longer about letting her wash and leave. This was the beginning of something bigger. But just as the moment softened, a sound cut through the night. A low hum, faint but unmistakable, vibrating through the walls of the house. Her eyes snapped wide with terror. "They're here," she whispered, her voice shaking. John's breath caught as the hum grew louder. Outside his windows, faint lights flickered in the dark. The hunters had arrived. The hunters arrive. The low hum outside grew louder, vibrating through the walls of John's small house. It was not the sound of a car, nor a machine he had ever heard before. It was deeper, heavier, almost alive. John's chest tightened as he glanced at the window, where faint beams of light flickered through the curtains. The alien girl gripped the edge of the bathtub, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Her breath came fast, and the water rippled with the trembling of her body. "They found me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They never stop. They never stop." John forced himself to stay calm. Though his own heart raced like a drum, he stepped away from the bathroom and peeked through a small gap in the curtain. What he saw made his blood run cold. Strange figures moved outside, tall and shadowed, their outlines glowing faintly under the dark night sky. They carried weapons, long, sharp, and alien in design. Their movements were precise, hunting, searching. John backed away from the window, his throat dry. "They're here," he said in a low voice. The girl nodded quickly, her wet hair sticking to her cheeks. "They won't stop until they catch me. But if they know you helped me, they will kill you too." The weight of her words struck him hard. He could throw her out, and maybe save himself. But as he looked into her terrified eyes, he knew he couldn't do it. She was no monster. She was someone who had begged him not for power, but for mercy. And now her life rested in his hands. John grabbed the metal rod he had used earlier. It felt like nothing compared to the weapons the hunters carried, but it was all he had. "Stay here," he told her firmly. "Don't make a sound." Her hand shot out, gripping his wrist tightly. Her skin was cold and trembling. "Don't go out there," she begged. "They will cut you down. You can't fight them." John looked at her, his jaw set. "Then I'll have to be smarter, not stronger," he replied, pulling free from her grip. The girl's eyes followed him, filled with worry. As he stepped into the dark hallway, the hum grew louder, closer. Shadows passed by the windows, and the floor creaked under his feet. John's palms were sweaty, but he forced himself forward. He had never been a soldier, never been in a war, but this was his home, his ground, and he would defend it. Suddenly, the front door shook violently. The frame rattled as something heavy struck against it. John tightened his grip on the rod, his muscles tense. The door shook again, louder this time, a crack forming near the hinges. The hunters were not going to knock politely. From the bathroom, the girl's muffled voice came, trembling. "They're breaking in." John's pulse pounded in his ears. He had seconds, maybe less. Quickly, he turned off the lights in the house, plunging the rooms into shadow. If they wanted to hunt, he would not make it easy. The door burst open with a thunderous crack. 3 figures stepped inside, their glowing armor lighting up the dark room. Their eyes, if they were eyes at all, glowed faint red beneath their helmets. The weapons in their hands buzzed with energy, crackling with danger. John crouched low behind the sofa, holding his breath. The hunters moved with slow, deliberate steps, scanning the room. One of them spoke in a voice that made the air vibrate. "She is here," it growled. "Find her." John's stomach clenched. He couldn't let them reach the bathroom. If they saw her, it was over. He needed a distraction, something to pull them away. With trembling hands, he picked up a glass from the table and threw it across the room. The glass shattered loudly against the far wall. The hunters snapped their heads toward the sound and moved in that direction. Their steps were heavy, metallic, shaking the floorboards. John crawled silently toward the back of the house, his eyes fixed on the kitchen. He grabbed a pan and swung it hard against the counter, making another loud noise. The hunters turned quickly, their weapons glowing brighter. One of them fired. A bolt of red energy shot across the room, blasting a hole into the wall where the pan had been. The house shook, dust falling from the ceiling. John ducked behind the counter, his heart racing. This was madness. He couldn't fight them with pans and rods, but he had to buy her time. Every second mattered. From the bathroom, the alien girl pressed her hands against the sides of the tub, her body shaking. She could feel the hunters' energy, the pull of their weapons calling to the power inside her. Her glowing scars pulsed, the light spreading across her arms. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Not now, not again, stay calm." But her body betrayed her. The marks lit up brighter, spilling faint blue light through the crack of the bathroom door. One of the hunters stopped suddenly, its head snapping toward the hallway. "She is here," it hissed, raising its weapon. John saw it turn, and his blood went cold. "No," he muttered under his breath. Without thinking, he jumped from behind the counter. Swinging the metal rod with all his strength, the rod struck the back of the hunters. Helmets sparking on impact, the creature snarled. Stumbling forward, but barely phased, it turned toward him, weapon buzzing with deadly light. John's chest heaved, his grip tight on the rod. He knew he couldn't win, but if he had to fall, he would fall, buying her one last chance. The battle at home. The hunter raised its weapon, the glowing red energy buzzing dangerously. John's breath caught, but before it could fire, a sudden burst of blue light filled the hallway. The bathroom door swung open, and the alien girl stepped out, her body trembling but glowing. Her scars lit up like rivers of fire under her skin, spilling bright light into the shadows. "Stop," she cried, her voice sharp, yet filled with fear. The hunters turned toward her, their helmets reflecting the glow of her power. For a moment, even they hesitated. John stared in shock, his rod slipping slightly in his grip. He had never seen anything like it. The girl looked fragile, yet powerful enough to burn the house down with a single scream. One of the hunters growled, raising its weapon. "She is unstable. Capture her now." The other moved closer, its heavy footsteps shaking the floorboards. The girl's breathing grew uneven, her glowing arms trembling as if her power was tearing her apart. "I don't want to fight," she whispered. "I just want to be free." But the hunters were merciless. One lunged forward, swinging its blade-like weapon. John reacted before he could think. He charged, swinging the metal rod with all his strength. The rod clanged against the hunter's armor, sparking but not piercing. The impact, however, pushed the hunter slightly off balance, buying a second of time. The alien girl lifted her hand, light pulsing from her palm. A sudden wave of blue energy shot outward, slamming into the hunter's chest. The creature was thrown back, crashing against the wall with a heavy thud. The house shook as plaster fell from the ceiling, dust filling the air. John's eyes widened. He turned to the girl, her glowing skin shining brighter now. "You can fight them," he shouted. Her lips trembled, her eyes full of conflict. "No, if I lose control, I'll destroy everything. Even you." The second hunter roared and charged forward, swinging its weapon toward John. John barely ducked, the blade slicing into the wall where his head had been. He stumbled back, his heart pounding. The hunter lifted its weapon again, ready to strike. But before it could, the girl screamed. A surge of blue light exploded from her body, blasting the hunter across the room. The energy rattled the windows, cracked the glass, and sent sparks flying from the hunter's armor. The creature hit the ground hard, twitching as its weapon fell from its grip. The third hunter stepped forward now, its voice colder. "She cannot be allowed to live free. She is dangerous." It raised its weapon toward her. John's instincts screamed. If it fired, she would be gone, without thinking. He threw himself forward, tackling the hunter around the waist. The two crashed to the floor, the weapon firing into the ceiling, leaving a burning hole above. The alien girl gasped, her hands glowing brighter. She felt the pull of her power growing, like a storm inside her chest. She didn't want to unleash it, but John was fighting for her, risking his life for someone he had only just met. Her tears mixed with the glow on her cheeks as she whispered, "Please, just hold on." John wrestled with the hunter, struggling against its inhuman strength. The metal rod clattered out of his hand, and he felt the cold edge of the creature's claws scrape against his arm. The hunter snarled, lifting him like he weighed nothing. John gritted his teeth, kicking and punching, but it wasn't enough. The weapon hummed again, pointed at his chest. Then, in a flash of light, the alien girl raised both hands. Her scars blazed so brightly that the room turned into pure blue fire. She screamed, and a wave of raw energy shot outward, blasting through the house like a storm. The hunter holding John was thrown across the room, smashing into the wall. The others collapsed, their armor sparking and twitching as the glow faded from their bodies. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of burning wood where the energy had scorched the walls. John fell to his knees, gasping for breath, his chest heaving. The girl stood trembling, her glowing arms dimming slowly as she sank against the bathroom doorway. Her face was pale, sweat dripping down her skin. She looked both powerful and broken at the same time. John crawled toward her, his hands shaking. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice hoarse. She shook her head weakly, her eyes wet with tears. "I didn't want you to see me like this. I didn't want you to know what I am." John looked at the destroyed living room, the broken walls, the sparks still glowing in the dark. Then he looked back at her. "You just saved my life," he said firmly. "I don't care what you are. You're not their weapon. You're more than that." Her lips trembled, and for the first time, a small fragile smile touched her face, but her body was too weak, her arms collapsing as she whispered, "They'll come again, stronger next time, and I won't have the strength to fight them alone." John placed a hand gently on her shoulder, steadying her as she leaned against him. "Then you won't be alone," he said, his voice steady. "Not anymore." Her glowing eyes widened, shimmering with tears. No one had ever said that to her before. For the first time, she felt something stronger than fear, hope. But outside, faint lights flickered again in the distance. The battle at home was only the beginning. Trust in the shadows. The house smelled of smoke and dust. Walls were cracked, furniture broken, the floor scattered with pieces of wood and plaster. John leaned against the wall, his chest heaving as he tried to catch his breath. Across from him, the alien girl sat on the bathroom floor, her glowing marks dimming slowly. Her skin looked pale now, her body shaking from exhaustion. The fight had drained her strength, leaving her weak. John crawled closer, his hand steadying her shoulder. "Can you stand?" he asked softly. She nodded faintly, but her legs trembled as she tried. He slipped an arm under hers, helping her rise to her feet. They moved carefully through the ruined living room. The hunters' bodies were gone, Their armor had dissolved into faint sparks of red smoke. Only scorch marks remained on the floor where they had fallen. John frowned, his eyes scanning the damage. "They're not dead," he muttered. "They'll come back," the girl whispered, her voice heavy with dread. He helped her to the sofa, though half of it was burned on one side. She sank into it, her eyes half closed, her breathing uneven. John grabbed a blanket from the corner and wrapped it gently around her shoulders. "You need rest," he said, his voice steady. She shook her head weakly, her glowing eyes looking at him. "No, if I sleep, they might come again. I can't let them find me so easily." John sat beside her, his hands resting on his knees. He studied her closely, the way her scars pulsed faintly like fading embers. "You've been running a long time," he said quietly. She nodded, her lips trembling. "All my life, from the moment they marked me, I was never free. I was property, something to be used." Her voice cracked, her eyes filling with tears. John's chest tightened as he watched her struggle to speak. "I used to dream," she whispered. "I wanted to see stars, oceans, worlds without cages, but dreams don't belong to people like me." She pulled the blanket tighter around herself, her body shivering even though the room was warm. John leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "You're not property," he said firmly. "You're not their weapon. You're not their tool. You're just you, and they have no right to take that from you." Her eyes widened slightly, the tears catching in the glow of the dim light. "No one has ever said that to me before," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They only ever told me what I was supposed to be, never who I could be." John looked at her, his jaw set. "Then let me be the first," he said. "From now on, you're not alone. I don't care what they say. I won't let them take you back." Her lips parted, her breath shaking. The weight of his words struck her deeper than any weapon could. For the first time, she allowed herself to lean against him, resting her head gently on his shoulder. Her glowing scars dimmed further, almost fading into silence. "You don't even know me," she whispered. John glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe not yet, but I know enough, and that's enough for me." The silence that followed was not heavy this time. It was soft, fragile, filled with something unspoken. The crackle of the broken wood in the corner echoed through the night. Outside, the faint hum of the hunters had faded, but John knew they were not gone for good. He tightened the blanket around her, protecting her from the chill that wasn't just in the air, but in her memories. Hours passed, though neither truly slept. John sat with his eyes half closed, listening to the faint sound of her breathing. The alien girl stirred sometimes, whispering words in a language he didn't understand. Her voice cracked, her body shivered as if haunted by dreams too heavy to carry. John placed a hand gently on her arm each time, grounding her back to the present. When the first light of dawn slipped through the cracked window, she finally opened her eyes. Her glowing marks were faint now, almost invisible. She looked at John with tired but calmer eyes. "You stayed awake," she whispered. John shrugged slightly, his voice low. "Couldn't sleep. Too much noise in my head." She studied him, her expression softening. "You risked your life for me, even when you had no reason," she said. Her words carried both confusion and gratitude. "Why?" John thought for a moment, his eyes drifting to the broken door, the ruined walls. Then he looked back at her, his voice steady. "Because sometimes, doing the right thing has no reason. It just is." Her lips curved faintly, not quite a smile, but close. She wrapped the blanket tighter and whispered, "Then maybe, in the shadows, I can finally trust someone." Her words lingered, filling the small room with a strange warmth, despite the ruin. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that not all hands reached to hurt her. That maybe, just maybe, one reached to protect, but outside, far in the distance. Faint lights flickered again. The hunters were not finished. They would return, stronger and angrier, and when they did, the bond between a human and an alien girl would be tested beyond anything either of them had ever known. Asterisk, the final choice. The morning sun barely touched the horizon when John noticed it. A faint hum in the distance, low but growing. He stiffened, his hand tightening on the broken window frame as he looked out. Faint red lights flickered again across the dark tree line. "They're back," he whispered. The alien girl stirred from the sofa, her glowing scars faint but still alive beneath. Her skin, her tired eyes widened with fear as she followed his gaze. "They won't stop this time. They will bring more. They want me alive at any cost." John turned to her, his jaw set. "Then we don't run, not anymore." Her lips parted, her voice shaking. "You don't understand. If they take me, they'll use me to destroy. Whole worlds will burn because of me." He stepped closer, kneeling in front of her, his hand steady as he pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You are not their weapon. You're not what they made you. You're you, and you're stronger than they think." Tears welled in her eyes as she shook her head. "But I can't control it. If I unleash too much, I could burn this whole place down. I could kill you." John placed a hand gently on hers, his eyes steady. "Then trust me, and trust yourself. We fight together, no matter what happens." Her lips trembled as his words sank in. No one had ever said that before. No one had ever chosen to stand with her instead of against her. Slowly, she nodded, her glowing eyes softening with something deeper than fear. "Together," she whispered. The hum grew louder, shaking the walls of the ruined house. John grabbed the metal rod again, though it looked pitiful compared to the hunter's weapons. The girl stood beside him, her glowing marks pulsing brighter with each heartbeat. Her body trembled, but her eyes carried new strength. The door burst open with a blast of red energy. This time, 5 hunters stormed inside, their armor glowing with menace, their weapons humming like angry beasts. John and the girl stood side by side, the shadows of the enemy stretching across the broken floor. "She is unstable," one of the hunters growled. "Seize her. Kill the human." John's heart hammered, but he didn't back down. "You'll have to go through me first," he said, his voice steady. The hunters moved forward, their glowing blades raised high. The alien girl closed her eyes, her glowing scars blazing. "Brighter, please," she whispered under her breath. "Let me be more than what they made me." The first hunter lunged, swinging its weapon toward John. He ducked and swung the rod, striking the creature's leg. The blow barely dented the armor, but it was enough to stagger it. The girl raised her hand, and a surge of blue energy shot forward, knocking the hunter back into the wall, sparks flying from its armor. The others attacked at once, their weapons slashing through the air. John blocked one strike with his rod, the impact jarring his arms. The girl screamed as she released another wave of light, the energy shaking the whole house. The hunters were thrown back, but they rose again, relentless. Their voices echoed like steel. "She must be broken now." John's body ached, his arms burning from the struggle. He stumbled, nearly falling, but the girl caught him, her glowing hands gripping his shoulders. Her eyes burned with determination. "I won't let them take you," she said fiercely. She raised both hands, her scars blazing so bright that the hunters paused for the first time. The light built inside her, stronger and stronger. Her body shook as the energy threatened to tear her apart. John grabbed her wrist, his voice firm. "You don't have to do it alone. Control it with me. Focus on me, not them." Her tears mixed with the glow on her cheeks as she met his eyes. His steady gaze anchored her, pulling her away from the storm inside. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was drowning in her power. For the first time, she felt like she could guide it. With a cry that shook the walls, she unleashed the energy. But this time, it was not wild, not destructive. It was focused, controlled, flowing like a river instead of a storm. The wave of blue light slammed into the hunters, tearing through their weapons, cracking their armor. One by one, they fell, their red glow fading into silence. When the last one collapsed, the house was quiet, Smoke rose from the walls, dust filled the air, but no more weapons buzzed, no more threats loomed. John held her trembling body as the glow slowly faded from her arms. Her breathing was weak, but her eyes still shone with life. "They're gone," she whispered, her voice breaking. "For now, they're gone." John lowered her gently onto the sofa, his chest heaving. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes softer than he had ever seen. "I could have destroyed everything," she whispered, "but you kept me human, even when I'm not." John shook his head firmly. "No, you kept yourself. I only reminded you who you are." Her lips curved faintly, her tears falling freely now. "You gave me more than safety. You gave me choice." She reached for his hand, her fingers cold but steady. "And I choose to stay." John's chest tightened at her words. He squeezed her hand gently, his voice steady. "Then whatever comes next, we face it together." For the first time since she had stepped into his house, her smile was real, fragile, beautiful, but filled with hope. Outside, the sun rose higher, breaking the night. The shadows of the hunters were gone, at least for now, but in the ruins of a broken home, something new had been built, trust, and the beginning of a bond stronger than fear. And so, in that quiet aftermath, a human and an alien girl sat together, not as captor and fugitive, not as weapon and victim, but as two souls who had chosen each other against the weight of the universe.